What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another AZ Aus video. In today's video, we'll be going over the recent Pro Football Focus article where they ranked all 32 teams entering the 2020 NFL season based on their receiving core. Now, the Arizona Cardinals came in at rank 8, behind a few teams that I think justifiably were ahead of us. The Dallas Cowboys, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Detroit Lions. Now, this is really cool to see the Arizona Cardinals ranked inside the top 10, just because if you go back a few years, our second string, I guess, wide receiver who was lining up across from Larry Fitzgerald on the depth chart was Chad Williams. Who's Chad Williams, you may ask? Well, he was a third rounder that Steve Keim took out of Grambling State, who is no longer with the team, and I believe he's struggling to stay on the Indianapolis Colts practice squad the last time I checked. Now, just in relation to the teams ahead of the Cardinals on this list, I think that's all pretty fair. Maybe I'd put us ahead of the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions, but then again, John Brown, he's a really solid number 2. Cole Beasley, that awesome slot receiver, made a name for himself back at Dallas. And then, of course, they recently acquired Stephon Diggs, which is a huge acquisition for the Bills. And then again, the Detroit Lions, not really some household names, but really under the radar solid players such as Kenny Golladay. He's extremely underrated in my opinion. So the Detroit Lions are just slightly ahead of us there in the rankings. Now, just going over the wide receivers on the team, I do believe going into the final roster cuts that we will end up having 7 wide receivers. Now, I do believe that will be DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler, Keyshawn Johnson, and now that 7th spot, I believe currently it will be held by Trent Sherfield, but do keep an eye on for an undrafted player that we did pick up, Jojo Ward. Just do keep an eye on him throughout training camp and throughout the preseason. Hopefully there will be some preseason. Just keep an eye out on him as well. But I do believe there will be 7 wide receivers heading into the season, and I just thought I'd give a brief little rundown of my opinion on our receiving core, and obviously just rank them myself in terms of where I would put the receiving core stacked up against the league. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, I've already made a video on this in the off-season review, episode 2. If you'd like to go check that out, there's a full breakdown there for some more DeAndre Hopkins stats. But just a fleecing, a criminal move. DeAndre Hopkins has a top 4 wins above replacement season this past decade per Pro Football Focus rankings. He's also recorded the highest amount of red zone touchdowns since 2017, being 29 touchdowns. That ranks, like I said, first, being the second rank was 26, so three more touchdowns than the next wide receiver. Now, in terms of his statistic, just accolades, I guess, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and a second-team All-Pro once. So this was a huge boost to our wide receiving core, and he is our number 1 receiver. Larry Legend, first ballot Hall of Famer, not the player he once was, but still a reliable target. He will be, I think the screen passes will shift more to either Nuke, Andy Isabella, or Christian Kirk, as Larry, is that reliable catch on the shorter routes. Now, Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella sort of lumped these two together just because the article did lump them together as the 2 targets that are favored to receive more deep receiving targets. With the departure of Damiere Byrd, I think Andy Isabella is going to step into that role. Andy Isabella was personally one of my favorites coming out of the draft. I had him going in round 2 to the Dallas Cowboys. But, when we traded Rosen and then I heard, we got Andy Isabella, I was really excited. I'm really excited to see him develop, and I think he will become that deep threat. You saw what he did in the few targets against Tampa Bay. I thought he was electric with the few catches he had there. And then obviously the big touchdown against San Francisco. Christian Kirk, I think putting him back in more of a role where he can work the deep parts of the field is more suited to his skill set rather than just pigeoning him in the slot. Then moving on to the other receivers that we have in our core, Hakeem Butler. I'm not sure where I rank Hakeem Butler. I've got to see him play in the NFL. But no doubt he is a big target in the red zone. We need to improve in the red zone. Nuke Hopkins, obviously the stats I mentioned earlier about his red zone efficiency. Hakeem Butler, Larry Fitz, these are big targets that we can have in the red zone. So obviously Hakeem Butler, I think, will make the team as a predominantly red zone threat. Although he does also offer some, deep, some deep yardage as well, where I think he ranked, top of the draft class in terms of his depth of target, plus 20 yards. Now, just briefly touch on the last few receivers: Keyshawn Johnson, Trent Sherfield. I think Keyshawn Johnson, he got his opportunity last year, and he showed, he wasn't able to take up, that receiver role that we needed. There was a lot of buzz about Keyshawn in the preseason, during training camp and all that, but once it required to be reflected on the field against NFL defensive backs, it didn't really show up. But I think year 2, he's a solid option as that, 5th, 6th receiving option. Trent Sherfield, hasn't really shown much. Basically had that one incredible catch against Atlanta, and that was basically it for him for the entire season. So these are just guys to fill out the roster, to be just, backup receivers, which I think they do an okay job at that. But to expect more than that, really, it's not really realistic. So I guess just wrapping up now, I think our receiving core from where it was a few years ago has, leaps and bounds improved by leaps and bounds. It's incredible to see the improvement of this roster, how Steve Keim, has been able to acquire DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm really, really excited to see this receiving core come into place. Cliff handpicked these receivers in the draft last year to be sort of like chess pieces in his offense. You can see he's got a receiver for each and every little thing he wants to do. So it's going to be really, really cool to see, especially with the 4 wide sets. If he does bring in a bit of those again, like he did in the first season. So I cannot wait. Please leave a comment below where you think our receiving core ranks amongst the league. I'd love to hear your response. Getting more and more comments in my video, so I'm really, really enjoying what you guys have to say and interacting with you guys. If you could please also just drop a like, hit that subscribe button as well. I'd love to see you in the coming videos. And I guess, just leave a comment where you'd rank our receiving core, who you're most excited to see next season. And as always, please do take care.